get in, lads. I have a video for all of my Jamaican fans out there. These are 7 players that could make the switch to Jamaica. Now, some of these I'm hoping you guys haven't heard before. I could go the easy route and make the Morgan Gibbs White, Ivan Toney kind of route, Raheem Sterling. I know you guys have seen videos like that before. So I try to pick a few players who you might not have heard before or not really considered or in that big name conversation for those who can make the switch. If any of that interests you, make sure to stick around to the end of the video. Make sure to leave a like if you do indeed like it, and then if you want more Jamaican content or concacaf content or football content in general, make sure to subscribe to the Get Football podcast. We're only about 100 subs off 1,000 subscribers. So if you want to help us out, make sure to do so. And if there's any other players you want to see me cover in a future video or that I just missed in general, make sure to leave it down below in the comments. And if we get enough recommendations or suggestions, I would definitely make a follow-up video or a part 2 or something like that. All right, number 1 of the 7 players is Ellis Sims. If you follow English football beyond the Premier League, you definitely have heard this guy's name before. Plays for Coventry City in the Championship and is a huge factor in their bid for an FA Cup this season. As of recording this, in the league itself, he has 12 goals, 1 assist. In the FA Cup through 5 games, he has 5 goals and 2 assists, and obviously they're in the semi-final. In the last 9 games in general, he's had 12 goals for Coventry, so he's been on fire recently. Through 45 total appearances, that's 17 goals and 3 assists for him. And of course, like I said, if you're a Jamaican fan, you probably already know this, but he is teammates with current Jamaican internationals Casey Palmer and Joel Lottie, who I'm sure are already talking to him about representing Jamaica. His main nationality right now is currently England, but I don't think he'll ever honestly break into that team. He is still fairly young. He only is 23 years old. But I do think he has a better chance at playing for Jamaica. Gives him potential World Cup possibility, gives him Copa America. If I were him, I'd pick Jamaica right now over England, 100%. He also could represent Poland, which definitely is still a good option for him. But Poland historically hasn't done too much in the world of European football. Joining them would only prove to be international experience, not really any wins, not really anything of high prowess like that. Being a striker, he could be a potential replacement for an aging Michael Antonio for Jamaica, who of course left the Jamaican training camp over the Nations League and didn't play for them against the USA in the semifinal or in the 3rd place game against Panama. A resistant striker opens room for a player like Ellis Sims, who could easily take that starting role and be a force to be reckoned with in CONCACAF here. Now, reports have come out over time saying that Jamaica have talked to him about maybe piquing his interest in switching to Jamaica. No confirmation on that. It's really just been rumors. But like I said already, the upcoming competitions for Jamaica could prove to be what switches him. And he could give Michael Antonio a run for his money in that starting position if they were to make it into the World Cup. By then, he'd only be about, I think, 25 or so. So still fairly young. Still has at least maybe 2 or 3 World Cups in him after that. Not to mention different Copa Americas or Nations League, Gold Cups, things like that. He could be taking Coventry City to a Premier League position next year as well, as they do currently sit 7th in the table. It is possible for them to play in the playoff that would give them that 3rd spot of promotion up to the Premier League. Number 2 on the list is Duyong Sterling. I may have pronounced his name wrong. I'm sorry if I did. Correct me in the comments, please. Duyong Sterling, former Chelsea Academy product, currently playing for Rangers in the Scottish Premier League. A very versatile player. He grew up playing that fullback / winger position on that right side. But since he's gone to Rangers, he definitely has been played in a more defensive midfielder position, which is a really good sign for the Jamaican international team, because that's definitely one position that fans have been crying out for some quality for a long time. He could be the answer here. He has been one of the stars of that Rangers side, and also currently does represent England if he were to be called up to the national team. But again, another one of those players where I don't think he'd make it into that CDM spot. So another player with a chance to move to Jamaica if they want current international football. He's only 24 years old, so like a year older than Ellis Sims. Definitely has a lot of time to make his decision. But if he were to make it now, there is a good chance that Jamaica could start forming this honestly super team of CONCACAF here. Now, he is eligible through both of his parents because they both are from Jamaica, although he has played for England youth teams throughout his career, from the U16 to the U20 teams. Unfortunately, his career has been plagued with a lot of injuries, not really allowing him to reach his full potentials, but Rangers is a top club, so being able to be a star for them is still a really solid sign for a player like him. The only issue with him being called up by Jamaica, however, is the Rangers manager is historically not a fan of his players going to play for international breaks. And if you were to be called up for the Copa America, that'd be right smack dab in the middle of Rangers offseason there. A few days or 2 weeks ago, there were some reports coming out that Jamaica had actually offered him a spot on the team for the Copa America, which is why I said that he's reportedly keen on it. So if he's smart, honestly, I think you play the rest of the season out, and I think you do join Jamaica for that international tournament in the summer. Number 3 on my list is Jed Spence. Jed Spence, I'm sure you've heard his name if you're a fan of English football, especially if you're a Tottenham fan. He is employed by Tottenham currently, but is on loan in the Serie A in Italy for Genoa. 23 years old. old, primarily plays right back and wing back, so he could be a very solid option for that right back position on the Jamaican national team. His most recent international experience was for England once more, where he played for the U21 team, only making 6 appearances for them, so he has historically represented England. But here, he definitely has a good chance at switching to Jamaica if they were to approach him. He unfortunately has had many setbacks throughout his career, and he was phenomenal over in England. And then he moved to Tottenham, and it hasn't really kicked off for Tottenham, unfortunately. He definitely is still young. He's only 23 years old, so he has a chance of bringing his career back into the limelight here. But if you were to switch to Jamaica, that would mean a little bit more experience for him at a top level, giving him more chance to grow his game, play against different opponents. I think it'd be huge for him if he were to switch to Jamaica, because it could put his career a little bit more back on track, and I think every player wants that, of course. Now, he was recently interviewed by The Athletic, and amongst other things, he was asked about international call-ups, both about England and Jamaica. He had went on to say that it has entered his mind before about the Jamaican switch, but he really does think that he could still make it into the England team. I don't think he can't. I think he still has a chance to, for sure, but I think as time goes on, he really has to think about his future here. And if he really doesn't break in within the next 2 or 3 years, I think you really have to make the switch to Jamaica just to guarantee yourself some experience. By then, too, the World Cup will be around. So if he doesn't make it into the England squad, by then I think he should 100% switch to Jamaica for that. Especially if they were to qualify, because then he'd get guaranteed World Cup experience there. He definitely still has a lot of time to develop as a player, and definitely could make that switch sooner than later, but I will say that his appearance, unfortunately, for Jamaica isn't likely coming up soon, but he is still young. Definitely could happen in the far future. And honestly, I'm willing to bet money that it would. All right, we got 4 more players to go, but if you've made it to this part of the video, make sure to like it down below. Leave a comment on anything I've said so far. If I was wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. We're almost halfway through the video here, so make sure to subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Help us out a little bit, but let's keep going. Number 4, we have Ishe Samuel-Smith. Moving on to a younger prospect here in the England game. Ishe Samuel-Smith is definitely one of the top English left-back prospects in the entire country here. He's recently signed for Chelsea from Everton on a total of £4 million move, which makes him one of the more expensive 17-year-olds in the world, to be honest. Like I said, he's only 17. He was recently shown off by Marca as one of the top prospects in the world. They recently released a starting 11 for their top U21 or I think U18 players around the world. For context, the 3 attackers in this list were Lamine Yamal, Kendra Baez, and Endrick. Definitely some really good company, really good prospects. I mean, those 3 easily could win the Ballon d'Or in the future, and for him to be included in such a list is really big. Ishe Samuel-Smith would be a huge statement signing, in my opinion, for the nation of Jamaica. If they were able to get a signature anytime soon, that would be absolutely amazing and could signal a wave of young players moving to Jamaica who are representing England currently. Like I said, he is one of their top left-back prospects, so he definitely still has a chance to make the England team in the far future, and the way it's going with a lot of these players, I do think he's going to wait a good while to see what happens. He's only 17, he has a lot of time to determine where his future is going to go, so he could reach the highest heights within the next few years, and he could not, and that's all going to determine how he decides to play in the future internationally. He has yet to make his Premier League debut. I do think he made an appearance for Everton, but in one of the League Cup games, and maybe getting some playing time in the coming weeks, as the Premier League definitely is dwindling down a little bit. Number 5 is a player that definitely has been on a lot of people's minds for a long time in Jamaica, but that's going to be Max Aarons. Max Aarons currently playing for Bournemouth in the Premier League. He's long been in the view of the Jamaica Football Federation. He was on that, I think it was like a 10-man list that Jamaica had made a couple years ago, signaling different players that could potentially represent Jamaica that they were going to reach out to. He's made 17 appearances so far in this season. Definitely one of the better England right back players in that right back pool. That's already pretty bloated, unfortunately. So I think the one big reason why he should make the switch to Jamaica is because the likelihood of him ever making a really big impact on the England national team is through injuries of the other players. Just to name a few of the players in that right back pool, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who pretty much has that starting position, not on lock, but he's a consistent performer for them. Reece James when he's not hurt. Kyle Walker, of course. You can even mention Aaron Wan-Bissaka in that position. Let me know if I left anyone else out, but those are already 4 different names that Max Aarons definitely has to compete with, and I don't even know if he's over at least the first 3. Maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but that's 3 different players he has to compete with who are still relatively young, at least TAA and Reece James are. So for him to ever make that starting role for England is highly unlikely, but if he were to move to Jamaica, I do think he'd be one of the consistent starters in the Reggae Boyz side. Now, it is very similar to Jed Spence. The last we heard from him on this topic was that he still wants to fight for an England spot, so it still might be a little bit. I do think another World Cup nomination would entice him to move over, but I don't think an appearance for him is in the books anytime soon. That doesn't mean they're not trying to approach him. I'm sure they are, but I do think it might take a little bit for him to make that switch. Like I said, he's highly rated. He has long been scouted by the top clubs, not only the England Premier League, but throughout the world. So he could make a really big switch and get higher on the radar for England. I just don't see it being as possible for him to make that team. I do think Jamaica would be the right choice, as with most of these players. Now, before we continue, I do have some honorable mentions that I'm not going to go fully in depth on. I'm just going to bring him up. Like I said earlier, Morgan Gibbs-White would be a huge option. Definitely still has potential to play for the England national team in the future. However, I do think if that doesn't come anytime soon, he should make the switch. Rico Henry, of course, just got injured for Brentford, but he would be a huge position at left back there. For the Reggae Boyz. For Everton, there's also is Dwight McNeil over there who could make the switch. He is eligible to play for Jamaica and who's been really on fire for Everton, honestly. One of their brighter spots in a rough past couple years. Of course, you got to mention Omari Hutchinson. He has played for Jamaica before. However, he is being a little weird with the call-ups to Jamaica. I think the past 2 or 3 times he's been called up, he's come up with some excuse to not join. But you never know. Maybe his mind changes in the future and he comes back. He'd be a huge representation in the midfield for Jamaica. I have 2 more players here for you. The first one is going to be Jaden Anthony, a winger whose parent club is AFC Bournemouth, but he is currently on loan at Leeds United. Unfortunately, the season hasn't really gone the best for him at Leeds United. He has shown his quality here and there, but he hasn't been a consistent thorn in their opponent's side, unfortunately. That's been for a whole plethora of reasons, injuries, his mom unfortunately passed away, so a whole lot of things you can't really blame him for. Hopefully he's able to pick it back up, but he has expressed interest in playing for the Caribbean country in the past. The winger spot definitely has way more depth for Jamaica, so it'd be a little hard for him to make a claim, but you never know. The attack has been a little interesting recently with the whole Leon Bailey issue, Michael Antonio, like I mentioned earlier. So he definitely could come in and, if not be a starter, at least provide some really solid depth. Both of his parents are from Jamaica, and he has said that he has, quote, good heritage from there. So family could be a big reason for him to move over to Jamaica. He is current parent club teammates with Jamal Lowe, who Jaden has said has already tried to entice him to move over to Jamaica. So definitely one to watch for the future. I guess there's not really any movement as far as we know, with Jamaica calling him up recently. But you never know, that could change in the future. Some news could come out about that, and I really would hope so, because I think he'd be a very solid concacaf winger. But honestly, you never know. It kind of really depends on what he does next year when he moves back to Bournemouth or goes out on loan. Not really high on the radar because of his season so far. However, everyone really knows his quality, so he definitely has a chance to do something in the future. All right, and I got one more player for you guys. It's going to be Tyrese Hall. If you haven't heard of him, that's understandable. Young guy, top teenage talent prospect for Tottenham in the U18 Premier League. A regular starter for them. He has 3 goals, 3 assists so far in 13 appearances this season for the U18s. Now, there are some reports about half a year ago saying that Jamaica were already interested in calling him up to the senior team, not just the youth team. So if he keeps his form up and soon breaks into a first team, either at Tottenham or on loan next season, it could prove to be really good for him, at least with Jamaica. He, of course, is another one of those England dual nationals, so he could represent England in the future. You never know. But England is going through one of their golden generations as well, so it's going to make it a little bit harder for him to break into the first team of the 3 Lions. If he were to move to Jamaica pretty soon, he could start developing with them, get that consistent international playing time, and that could be really huge for him. He has represented England before, but he's only represented them twice, and they're both international friendlies, so he hasn't really been a feature in England's youth teams. He definitely is another one of Jamaica's dual national golden generation. I mean, a lot of these players here I've mentioned are still young and have, younger counterparts that could play for Jamaica in the future. And if Jamaica really makes this push to get a lot of these players signed, it could be really huge for the next decade or 2, to be honest. Tyrese Hall is in the same boat as Ishii Samuel Smith for me, in the way that he'd be a huge signing, a statement signing personally for them if he were to be called up and accepted it. He could prove to be the reason why a lot of other players that could represent Jamaica would come over, and it could spell a really good future for them. But yeah, I think that's really all I have for my list here. Like I said, if there's anyone I left out or that you want to hear more of, leave it in the comments down below, because I will make a video in the future on that. Leave a like on the video, just to let us know that you enjoyed it and you want more kind of content like this. Like I said, we're only about 100 subs off of 1,000, so if you want to help us get there, greatly appreciate that help. Like I said, leave a like, comment, all that stuff. So yeah, that's really all I have for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys later. Whoa, take it easy.